What is up, guys? Welcome back to today's video. We're still working on the 64 Beetle. We're about a week and a half away from leaving for Fort Myers, Florida for Eurotripper 11. And that's kind of like the deadline for this car. We haven't been burning the midnight oil on this car yet, but we've been doing everything we can to get this thing ready for not just Eurotripper, but the upcoming giveaway for this car. So as most of you guys know, and if you're new to the channel, we'll give you a quick update. We are putting a full Everesto suspension kit in this car. We're doing a 6-inch narrowed beam. We're doing the narrowed track rods, drop spindles, Everesto skid plate, all sorts of bits. We've got the adjustable rear spring plates already in the car. We did a couple episodes ago. This episode should be the episode where we're setting this thing down on all 4 tires again and driving it. Totally transformed suspension-wise, height-wise, and track width-wise, since we're going to a 6-inch narrowed beam. So what we're starting with in this episode is I'm going to separate the previous drop spindles that are already on the knuckles, so to say, where the kingpins are. The kingpins need to get rebuilt, and we're not going to do that before Eurotripper. We don't have a reamer here in the shop long enough to do them both at the same time so they're aligned. So we're going to do that after Eurotripper. These drop spindles are reverse tapered, so we can run our tie rod ends up from the bottom, which means the track rod, tie rod angle isn't going to be super high up and exhausted to go in from the top on the spindle. They'll go up from underneath now, and that'll give it a couple more inches of alleviation to relax the geometry of the tie rod. All right, we have been hammering away on this thing in the vise, down on a block. We got the control arms off. We got the link pins, which hold the control arms to the knuckle. We got those out in order to make way to hammer the kingpin out. It's not going easy at all, but we got it moving with that. So we've been hammering down through here with the link pins out to push the kingpin down. I can't believe we've got one more of these to do. Oh, yeah. And I know we should have had a rebuild kit here with a reamer ready to go so we could rebuild these and just do this once. But after Eurotripper, we're going to do this once more to finally rebuild these. We want to drive this thing and make sure we don't have any other issues. So we're here doing this now. Don't do it twice. Don't be like us. Don't do it twice. Get everything in order and just do it once. Don't have a tight timeline to get stuff done or deadline.
Like they say, buy once, cry once.
Why must I cry? All right.
Here we go.
Did you hit your hand? No. Oh, man. All right, well, new spindle is in the carrier, and kingpin is in. There's still a little bit of a...
Easy for you to say.
It is, because I'm stroking. Still a little bit of play, and you can kind of see it move a little bit. But to be honest, that's the amount of play we had before. We'll do the other one. We'll pull these control arms off. We'll punch that kingpin out. We'll get the link pins out first, obviously, and we'll do that one too. And then from there, we'll be ready to reassemble the front end and start putting all the new Everesto bits in this car. We are going to put the beam in now. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount this in the car, so at least then it's held and secure, and we'll grease up the leaf spring stacks, and we'll install those with it mounted in the car. Should be a little bit easier since the beam will be in one place. Okay. You can see here, as we mentioned in the last episode, the 6-inch Everesto beam still allows you to run shocks. Now you can get a 6-inch beam from Everesto without these shock towers, but they step out beyond the inner tub, essentially, into the wheel well so you can run shocks. And it's a threaded port right up in here that allows you to run a 6-inch narrowed beam in a Beetle with step-out strut towers to run shocks. So Corey got the new steering setup in from the last one. This is not okay. What we'll do next is we'll set it down and we'll work on steering assembly. All right, so we totally forgot until we were filming that last clip that the bottom 2 bolts that mount the beam to the car actually also mount the skid plate to the beam. So we got that in. Okay, so here's a quick rundown on how an adjustable front beam in a Volkswagen Beetle works. So the middle of the beam, of your stock beam, has a fixed threaded port, top and bottom, right? And that takes a grub screw. It's just a threaded rod with an Allen head on it with a taper that fits into the dimples that are on the leaf stacks that you saw us drill the new ends of, right? So this is fixed. You just thread it in and it holds the leaf stack in one position, which is that factory height position. Now, if you were to twist that leaf stack, you could raise the car or you could lower the car because your control arms are mounted directly to the ends of that leaf stack. Now, all you air-cooled Volkswagen guys, this is all redundant. You guys know all of this already. But if you're thinking watching the series, man, I really want a Beetle, and you want to slam one, this is how the suspension is set up. We drilled our new dimples for the grub screws on the end, right? And here is the factory grub screw. It's just an Allen head, threaded bolt with a taper on the end that fits right into those dimples. Now the Everesto beam, this bolt underneath raises or lowers essentially this grub screw. So this is your adjuster bolt here. It's a jam nut on it. Loosen this jam nut up, and then you can raise or lower this bolt and adjust the height of the car. If you look inside here, you'll be able to see that moving. And that is essentially moving your whole leaf stack. So these need to be greased up significantly, the leaf stacks. And they come out very, very greased up. The beam has grease fittings on both ends of both tubes, upper and lower. But you'll want to grease them up too before you put them in. And I'm sure everyone's got a different way of doing this, but the more grease, the better they ride. We've got a foam like paint applicator that we're gonna use so we're not like getting too covered in grease.
Yeah.
Gonna use that as like a scoop.
Yeah, that'll work all right. And then, like we said, we'll fill it with the grease gun after.
Yep, from the fittings. If you guys have tried to put leaf stacks in a beam before, sometimes it just fights you to death. We zip tied the end, Corey ran the stack through, and we lined it up in 5 seconds, and now we're in. Literally 5 seconds. The zip tie method works. There it is. Perfect. All right, well, we'll get the second one in the same way. We're about to grease this stack down, and I'll put a zip tie around this end to hold that as square as possible and as tight as possible. As you can see, the top and bottom stacks are two small ones. And so those were getting separated and folding all over the place and weren't fitting through the little square hole, which is about the same size, just like that. All right, so from the grub screw in the middle up, or the dimple up, you can see we've heavily greased it. This side we'll do once we get the first half in. And I've zip tied the end right on the end here and tried to make this as square as possible to hold enough to get it through that square port on the lower beam now. And then what will happen is once that fits through the square port, the port itself will push that zip tie down. And the zip tie can live there. It's no big deal, but it helps us get that through that square port without these becoming all misaligned and jamming up in the hole. Just like that. I like it. All right, so not knowing what to film and what not to film to just save on time because we really want to drive the car today, I just slid one of the control arms on. And our next question was, did we drill the new dimple ports for the grub screws on the control arms in the right place? Because we had to cut these leaf stacks down by 3 inches on either side. Doesn't really matter how far you cut on either side as long as the control arm can fit on. But what does matter is where the dimple port is for the grub screw, because that's what holds the whole wheel onto the car essentially. So I slid it on and Corey kind of played like eyeball, and we're lined up perfectly on our dimple. Yeah, it's probably too dark. The day's running out, and we really wanted to drive this thing today. We're running out of daylight, so what we're aiming for now is to at least just get it set down on all 4 wheels and dial in the suspension and show you guys the change in factory ride height to how low we can go with this adjustable setup. So I haven't been filming that much. We've got control arms in, we've got knuckles and spindles on, we've got tie rods in now. These are all Everesto as well. We do, unfortunately, right now have to put the junk stock shocks back in just for our preliminary drive. But hopefully before Eurotripper, and certainly before the giveaway, we're gonna have some brand new Coney shocks in this thing. Max supplied the Everesto lower shock relocator parts that he makes. And I'll show you guys exactly how this works. And this is what it looks like with the shock installed without the relocator. We're on the lower control arm here. It's going out and back too far. So if you can kind of see from here what I'm talking about, and that relocator mounts the lower out and back farther. And so that lines it back up with the upper strut tower. All right, so shock lower relocator is in, but it is important to know that this is used only with the Everresto 6-inch narrowed beam. He uses these only for the 6-inch, but also you take your front shocks and you flip them upside down because you run into spacing issues against your upper control arm. You can see what's happening here. It's offsetting it, but also pulling it back farther as well. All right, I think we are ready to put wheels on and set this thing down. Everything but a fuel tank. We're gonna do that in the morning. It's getting late now, but we wanted to finish the night setting it down on all fours, eyeballing a quick alignment. So we're excited. This is the most awesome part of any project for us. Yeah, this is the best part of the project so far, to like set it down on the wheels and just see how much lower than stock we can go. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, these are the 1-inch wide 5 spacers. They are definitely a different style of free-floating spacer. This will space that 205 tire away from the body mount, which is rubbing really badly right there. And the fact that we're going lower, there's gonna be more negative camber, and it's gonna rub even worse now. So hopefully this 1-inch 25 mil spacer will do the trick. Keep going.
Keep going.
Oh man.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh. All right. So the rear was set up to stock with just the 3-inch drop that the plate swings in, but the front, we are like so stoked on the front. First of all, it's got that air-cooled sunk look. You know, with the 6-inch narrowed beam, that tire is so far in there now. We're like an inch from the skid plate touching the ground.
So good. Oh my god. Hold on.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, that's sick. Heck yes. And the height and the narrowed front. So sick.
Hovercraft.
So now all we got to do now is crank the rears down. I'd much rather see flat or a tiny bit of rake. So this is the adjuster here. This pushes on the main plate that's got the splines in it against the torsion bar in the torsion tube. This is the actual spring plate that mounts to the axle. So when you adjust the two, it raises and lowers the rear wheel. Now, this is the adjuster. It's an 8mm Allen. And then this is a lock bolt. So basically once you get it in place, not only will this stay, but this is just an added lock to keep this from moving at all. Now we'll just take this down all the way.
Yes.
Oh, it's still going on this side. Oh, yes.
Yep.
Watch your fingies.
Yeah, I'm not. Oh my.
You tucking wheel on that side?
Oh yeah. Wow. Oh, I wish I did a Beetle so much sooner than right now.
Right, me too. All right, guys, next day, we got the Beetle down on 2x4s now because we're about to roll it off onto the floor for the first time. Wow, that looks awesome on the ground. Something's making some noise.
Yeah.
Like a bolt inside the drum? All right, so we're just about dialed in, and this is easier done with the fuel tank out. So since we already had the fuel tank out, this was an easy step. We're also gonna grease the beam, even though we greased the leaf stacks to high heaven when we put them in. That and this is not driving the Beetle. I haven't filmed absolutely every hurdle and every miniature L we've taken on this Beetle, but this is one of them, and I decided to film it. We got the front aligned, and we rolled it down off the blocks before that, and it made a little bit of noise. We're running the spacers from CIP1 in the back. They're a 25 mil spacer, and they provide longer bolts with the spacer. Now, one side's not making any noise, but when we started rolling it back and forth, it sounded like a bolt was too long and it was hitting the retainer springs that hold the shoes on. That's exactly what it sounded like. And so then we got it in the air and the drum won't even roll. Luckily, the adjusters seemed new through the sight hole. Got the adjusters loosened up. Drum still wouldn't come off. Put the spare tire on because that was kind of small as leverage. Screwed that into the drum. Was able to pull the drum off. The springs aren't broken, but they were like dislodged. They had pulled through. The little rod that comes through the back of the plate that holds it on had come off. Well, without filming too much about this, the bolts are too long, or these stick out too far, and it's a combination of the two. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take 3 mil off of these, since that'll still give us 2-inch protrusion into the drum with full, 2 mil of protrusion into the drum and full engagement in the threads inside the drum itself. So yeah, that's our next step before we drive this thing.
Gonna fight every step of the way.
It's so funny because Corey thinks this is like, this never happens, when this is literally par for the course for anything I ever touch. That's so funny. All right, well, Corey got the fuel tank in. Well, I worked on cutting down the lug bolts. Fuel's going in the tank now. Exciting. We still haven't started this thing since we took the motor apart and put it back in, so should run better, but we haven't heard it run yet. We got fuel in the tank. We're gonna put the hubcaps on now, connect the battery. We'll try to start this thing. Well, she's outside the shop and not stock high anymore. Man, this thing looks good. All right, so we're headed down my street. We got some rubbing. We got some rubbing up front, some rubbing in the rear. We're thinking it's just tires. But I just said to Corey, I can't believe how well it rides for how maxed out everything is. We just brought the top and bottom front adjusters up about a 1/4 inch, and the rear spring plate adjusters are up a 1/4 inch, just to see how far everything's settled. But we're going over a pretty rough road right now, and yeah, it's bouncy, but it's honestly got quite a bit of suspension left to it. Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, I don't like that.
We got a really bad vibration in the rear end now.
Don't like that.
All right, well, we've made it 1/8 of a mile down the street from my house, and we had a concerning like thumping sound in the rear end, like axle. The only thing we can think of would be axle. And then the car died, and now we're trying to figure out why we can't get it started, but we're also losing charge and it's cranking really slow now. So I think we're walking back to the shop here unless we get one more Hail Mary pass. This is so Volkswagen. Literally so Volkswagen. At literally the last crank of voltage. Crank, crank. And it goes, and what I did was I depressed it an 1/8 throttle, and it started right up. Now I'm driving it like every air-cooled 911 owner.
Yeah.
Sounds like they're all smoking their clutch. All right, we made it back. Well, we made it home. It's a combination of a few things. Just got to tune the motor a little bit more, carburetor, fuel. But here's where we'll end the episode. We got all the suspension parts in, we got the motor in the last episode, and we've driven it. We have a few things we need to tidy up on it. That's about it. Huge thanks to Everesto, Max, Jesse, everyone over in England at Everesto for helping us slam this Beetle using all of their components. It looks so good. This thing looks so sick, slammed on the ground.
You said Coney is sending some shocks over too, right?
Yes, yes. So as we're filming this, today Coney shipped some front shocks for the car. The rears are good, and Coney's currently out of stock of the rears, but we've got front shocks coming, so huge thanks to Coney for that. We're going to be doing more work with them in the upcoming year. We're going to be putting some shocks on the Mercedes 210 as well. So yeah, we've got more stuff coming. Those should be here by the end of the week. So we'll do another episode dialing this thing in. We're going to do some aesthetic stuff to it as well in preparation for Eurotripper. So we'll have at least 1 or 2 more episodes on the 64 Beetle before we leave for Eurotripper. Well, that's it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't yet, just hit that subscribe button. All of you over on the Patreon have helped this channel grow in a massive way, so huge thanks to all of you there. If you want to help support the channel and the shop in a larger way, the Patreon link is in the video's description below, as well as the web store link. Keep checking back there. We keep doing a lot of mini drops. We got another shirt coming out very soon. I know the last 2 drops, we've been doing 30 quantity batches each run, and they sell out super fast. So if you've missed one, we got more coming out, so more merch soon. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.